there's allegations that this might be the resurgence of the Married to Macros podcast. Can you confirm or deny those allegations?
Ben can only dream.
So I've got some questions here just from the MTM community in general. So to those of you that sent these through, thank you very much. And these are absolutely questions without notice that you've had no time to prepare for.
Can confirm.
So we'll see how you go, but obviously no pressure on, okay? Our first question and our first podcast with Chiara. Is perimenopause a causative factor in diet and weight struggles or an easy excuse?
Oof. Can it be both?
You're the one answering the question.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that it can absolutely be both. It can be a causative factor, one of which we can make some efforts to control for. But it can absolutely be an easy excuse to opt out of doing the things that you need to do in order to get through it in good fashion.
What do you typically find when dealing with perimenopausal clients that the struggle is? Is it just a lack of knowledge in good decision making? Is it a change in factors like BMR that has potentially led to things being harder than they used to be? Is it just a change in lifestyle circumstance where maybe it's harder to train, harder to find the time, harder to do all the things that you used to be able to doing?
Oh, you're going to hate this. It's so gray because it is so independent on the individual. I think for a lot of women, when we hit perimenopause, there's been so many lifestyle factors that have potentially worked against us in terms of decreasing our fitness, our nutrition, our health and lifestyle choices up to that point. You know, women at that age, we're typically quite often have a family and a career. And so there's so many things vying for your attention. And so the habit of health and fitness is often degraded. So we're starting from a lower baseline there. And then we get hit with these hormonal symptoms. And then you couple that with the fact that if life has been busy and you've been raising a family and building your career, and not focusing on particularly the fitness end of things, we get to that perimenopausal age with significantly lower lean mass and less bone density as well. And so all the factors...
It's going to get me a YouTube strike.
So all the factors that can help us navigate perimenopause, like having that higher lean mass, is not there. Right? And it's very, very hard to build up those structures once we've hit that point. So you're starting with less lean mass, you're starting with less time, your sleep is probably already impaired before the hormonal elements start to hit, and then you get those coming into play as well. So for women, I think it can be any combination of those complex factors.
So if you're going to nail it down to clients that you're working with that are perimenopausal and you're going to give them, hey, here's the 3 main things that we want to focus on over the next 3, 6, 12 months as you're working your way through this period of transition, what would those 3 focal points be?
So number 1 is going to be sleep. I'm going to get them to do everything in their power to improve their sleep quality. Now, there's often a hormonal condition within that we may be not able to control, but all of the lifestyle factors, the good sleep hygiene, the getting to bed early, prioritizing that for both yourself and kind of getting your family on board with prioritizing that as well is going to be my number 1 for them. Because without that, nothing else works. Then I would look at their nutrition. If their baseline is relatively high, say it's a current MTMM client and they're already doing quite well and they're starting to see some perimenopausal changes, then there are some little tweaks and changes that we can make there with how we feed them, the macro percentage, etc. But I would probably look largely to the type of activity that we're doing and making sure that we are maximizing our time there as well. So things like making sure that we're doing heavy weight training, making sure we're doing true high intensity efforts, and ensuring that we're not spending the majority of our training time in that moderate intensity zone, which is just going to raise our cortisol levels and not raise our testosterone levels enough to bring that down. I would be looking to spend most of my time on either ends of the spectrum then.
What are your factors that are flagging, oh, this client is just about to enter the fun that is the perimenopausal phase?
I mean, really, like I've kind of got my spidey senses up for any woman past the age of 35. We could potentially be starting to see those things crop up. Maybe we don't notice anything for 10 years after that. But for anyone about that age and beyond, I'm already starting to think about it. And then typically, probably the first sign that I'm seeing in women is when we start to see irregularity within their cycles. They're starting to stretch out, they're going longer between cycles, they're going shorter, they're having strange mid-cycle bleeding, things like that. Even if they've got no other symptoms, but they're starting to see a bit more irregularity, yeah, I'm starting to get suspicious.
A second question comes in. A lot of our community are CrossFitters, and so always comes with the eternal question, how do I lose body fat to gain skills in a CrossFit realm such as pull-ups, butterfly chest bars, but still manage to fuel efficiently?
Yeah, so this is a great question. I would say my first question back would be, how strong are you? There's almost no point losing the body fat to gain those skills if you don't have the requisite strength for them yet. We have to have the baseline strength. If you don't have the baseline strength, it doesn't matter if you're lighter. You're still not going to have it. If you've got the baseline strength and you've got some excess body fat, absolutely, dropping that down is going to be very beneficial in helping you get there. There's also the caveat in that it is dependent on the person. It is dependent on how much body weight they have to lose, right? It might be very hard to gain the strength when you're sitting at a very high body weight number. I focus primarily when I'm looking at bringing people's weight down for things like improving their gymnastics on ensuring that they have adequate means to recover. So when we're looking to cut excess fat, we're typically able to maintain nearly all of our current strength if we do it well. If we have high protein intake, we give lots of carbs around the workouts. But if we impair recovery, what is going to happen is your capacity day to day is going to decrease and you're not going to be able to progress very much. So we would only put you in just enough of a deficit that we start to see those really slow losses, but you're still coming into each session feeling like you're really amply fueled. Biggest things around that, making sure you've got some carbs on board pre-training so that you've got some energy to burn, particularly within that like glycolytic system that's so reliant on glucose. And then also maximizing your recovery by ensuring that you're getting about 1 gram per kilo of carbohydrate within the hour post-workout, along with anywhere from 15 to 40 grams of protein. So if that takes the bulk of your carbs for the day, that's okay. I'd rather see it there so that we can maximize the return.
This one comes in, I'm 25 kilos or so overweight and I'm currently inactive, not much of a gym history. Am I better off to focus primarily on losing the weight or trying to gain muscle?
With not much of a gym history, I would say you are better off to do the activity that interests and excites you more and gets you into the gym. Let's focus on getting you into the gym and getting the sessions in. Probably the body composition is going to work out for itself. You're probably going to get a little bit of both. But if you're coming in and doing long monostructural cardio every day because you're trying to burn fat and you hate it, it's not going to be very effective because you're not going to keep coming. It's also not a super effective way to burn fat.
With the changing weight classes in Olympic weightlifting, I now sit 3 kilos outside of my new class. How much is an optimal amount to sit above your weight class? Am I better off staying in the higher weight class or cutting down into the lower weight class?
It's going to depend a little bit on what weight class you are. So if you're 48 sitting at 51, or if you are like 80 for 77, that's going to make a big difference. 3 kilos is tough because I would say to be competitive, you definitely want to go for the lower weight class. But if you're a newbie weightlifter, I think that you should compete where your body's at and focus on getting your lifts up first. If you're a competitive athlete, 3 kilos outside is probably, for many of the weight classes, particularly the women, a little bit more than I would like to cut for each competition. So I would focus on getting your body weight down a kilo, kilo and a half, and then cutting that last little bit prior to comps.
With an upcoming comp and a weight cut ensuing, how many weeks for an optimal weight cut? The longer the better? Or shorter, sharper, and more aggressive?
Depends how much weight you have to cut. I would say that if you're within 2 kilos of your class, shorter and sharper is going to be more beneficial because it leaves you more better fueled training time leading into comp. 2 kilos, we're probably looking at a kilo of true loss and a kilo on a water load.
Clients that are new to tracking macros, what are the 3 things they most likely to marker?
Having exercise cals turned on, so it's adding additional calories back in. Not reading nutrition labels, scanning barcodes, and just blindly accepting what is in there, and not looking at the entries and having kind of like a templated list with what we know are known correct macros. So you go and you put in your 100 grams of chicken breast and there's only calories, no macros, or it says it's 60 grams of protein, something like that.
Yeah. Tracking macros, a heavily restrictive approach to nutrition or a way to encourage food variety and food freedom and flexibility?
Depends on the person. For me personally, I find tracking is a way to open up and create more variety in my day-to-day. So I love that. For other people, they're going to find the numbers quite restrictive and limiting because they feel they need to be so close to them and kind of Tetris out their food. If that's the case, there's definitely other ways to skin the cat. So I would suggest not getting overly hung up on tracking macros and more focused on a templated approach to eating.
If you are tracking your macros, do you have to be 100% compliant every day?
No. I always tell my clients, I usually have a range depending on what their macros are for what I would consider 100% compliance. And that's usually within about 7 to 10 grams for their protein and their carbs and about 3 to 5 grams on their fats. I would consider that 100%. I ask my clients if we want to be able to determine whether changes are due to your profile or outside sources. I usually ask for 80% compliance 80% of the time. For myself, I'm probably pretty close to 90% 5 days of the week. And then the other 2 days I still track, but I allow myself to go over, or I allow myself a little bit more freedom with not knowing what the foods are. And that's been very effective.